I'm going to say OK. And it just takes a few seconds, and my model has been imported. Here I have it totally ready to be painted on. So let's just do a little bit of exploring here before we start importing the second model. So the first thing we want to look here is if I go to the upper right corner, if I click on that icon, my texture list shows up. And my texture list means the objects that I have identified as shaders in Maya, they show up as so. And right now they are all using the main shader. And the main shader is a shader that it's a metallic coming from the original template that we selected as our original template to work with. We can fine-tune and look up the shaders and look at the shader attributes when you go to this little icon here that has the main shader. In this case is the PBR shader. We can create new shaders if we want to. For now we are not going to that, at least not yet. And I'm going to go back up here and see that each one of those objects I can hide them. So this is the way for me to isolate parts so that I can work with them. That texture set list is connected for each object to, for example, layers. So each one of these objects has a set of layers that work very similarly to Photoshop layers. So when you work on every object, you will be able to paint in inside of each object individually. The other window that is important to remember is the window up here. And this window is a settings per texture. So when you're going to paint your layers, each shader is going to have a texture, and that texture has connected into it a set of channels. And those channels, you can expand on them or you can keep the ones that you have by default. Default, we're going to keep it right now. We have a base color, height that is going to represent bump, roughness that's going to represent parts of it, bump, parts of it could be a little bit of a reflective, metallic of course, and normal map. You could add more to it if you need to. We're going to keep it for now very simple. We also have a window for paint properties where you can modify your brush and you can do all sorts of different things, and you can show down here how or what parts of that material you want it to be working on. So if you have up here the channels, you can see them here: base, height, roughness, metallic, and normal. When you go to your brush, you can choose which one of those you want them to be active when you are painting. Here we have a shelf of materials that you can work from that will give you basis for you to create your textures. You also have a series of other elements, other components that give you skin, or you have also other tools to create different type of textures and brushes and other things, type of brushes, particles, and so on and so forth. So it gets a bit sophisticated, very sophisticated actually, to create your file. Next, we have here this little icon that's the display settings. And the display settings start with environmental settings. So which is pretty nice because you can here under the map, you can see different types of you're gonna call it sky domes or domes to illuminate your scene. So that way you have a sort of similar lighting of what you think your final image is going to be doing. You can make that image visible, of course, if you turn it all the way up, and you can play with the blurriness of it so that you can see if the object is eliminated matching that, which is pretty neat because you can then go and find, the right one that it will give you a similar condition to what you're seeing is going to be. I'm going to just find one that gives me something that is more like this. I can like that one, and this again is pure preview for you to be able to work in sort of similar conditions to your file at the end as it's going to be rendered in Maya. Of course, you can crank the exposure of it so that it becomes lighter or darker. You can keep it at 0 for now. You can rotate your environment, of course, so that you can lighting is matches a little bit better there. And you can blur it, so if you don't get distracted with the background, it's always good to have it. Or you simply can hide it, so the lighting is still there, but you'll see just your model. I'm using right now exactly the same keys in order to manipulate the rotation and the movement of my object. I'm rolling my middle mouse button right now.